The gala was in full swing when I walked in, the sparkle of the lights reflecting off crystal glasses and the luxurious outfits surrounding the ballroom. The scent of expensive perfume mingled with the aroma of champagne bubbling at elegantly decorated tables. I felt like a fish out of water, suffocated by the glamour that enveloped me. The weight of my family's legacy seemed to drain the joy from any moment. If I could, I would have tucked myself into a dark corner, away from curious glances and trivial conversations. "Ethan, dear," a sweet, high-pitched voice called me. It was my mother, in her shimmering red dress, radiant as always. She approached, her eyes sparkling with expectation. "You need to find a bride. Have you thought about who it could be?" "Mom, that's not a priority for me right now," I replied, trying to keep my composure. What I really wanted was an escape, not a commitment. The pressure from my family to marry some socialite was exhausting me. "You know we cannot dishonor our family tradition. Society is watching you, Ethan. It's time to take on your responsibilities." I took a deep breath, looking around the space. The laughter and whispers of the elite of Nova Bellezza blended into a deafening buzz. Every gaze directed at me felt like an additional weight on my shoulders. I needed an exit. As my mother spoke, I looked towards the ballroom door, contemplating how easy it would be to just leave it all behind. But then something caught my eye. A figure stood out among the crowd, a woman with disheveled hair and a simple dress, as if she had stepped out of a completely different world. She was in an art gallery set up on the side of the ballroom, observing the paintings with an intensity that fascinated me. It wasn't just her simplicity that attracted me, but the authenticity in her gaze. It was as if each piece of art spoke directly to her. I decided to approach her. "Hello," I said, trying to sound casual. "Are you an artist?" She turned, surprised, and a shy smile appeared on her face. "I am, yes, Sarah Thompson. I'm showcasing some of my works here, although they don't exactly belong to this gala world." "Ethan Caldwell," I said, extending my hand. "I believe you're the only person not worried about what others think at this party." She laughed softly. "That's true. I'm just trying to show what I can create without getting swept away by the pressure." The conversation flowed naturally. I was captivated by the way she spoke about art, her passion, and her struggle to be recognized. It was so refreshing to hear someone who didn't care about social status, and it made me reflect on the life I was leading. "You have an incredible talent, Sarah. Your works are different." I hesitated, searching for the right words. "They have an essence that's lacking in the pieces I see around here." "Thank you. That means a lot to me. Critics usually don't see beyond the glamour." She looked down, a bit embarrassed. "I just want people to feel something when they look at my art." Her sincerity touched me. At that moment, a bold idea began to form in my mind. What if I could use this connection, this authenticity, to escape the pressure surrounding me? "What if I made you a proposal?" I asked, adrenaline coursing through my veins. She raised her eyebrows, intrigued. "Proposal? What are you talking about?" "What if you became my fake fiancé?" The words came out before I could think better. "I need someone who can help me fend off my family's expectations. If you become my fiancé, maybe it will give you a bit more visibility in the art world too." She looked at me with a mix of surprise and hesitation. "That's a bit unusual, don't you think?" "Unusual, I know. But believe me, I don't know how to deal with all of this anymore. My family is pressuring me to marry a socialite. I don't want that." I paused, trying to convey sincerity in my eyes. "And you? What do you have to lose?" Sarah considered the proposal for a few moments, her gaze distant. "Well, she hesitated, biting her lip. "I really need an opportunity in the art world, and in a way, your proposal seems like a way to escape too. But what if it all goes out of control?" "I promise it won't be a painful farce." The idea began to take shape in my mind. And who knows, we might learn from each other in the process. She smiled, a hesitant smile, but it revealed a spark of curiosity. "All right, let's do this." From that moment on, a new chapter began to unfold in our lives. One that, although based on a farce, promised to be more authentic than the superficial world I knew. With a handshake, we sealed an agreement that would change the course of our stories. And in that moment, amidst the glamour of the gala and the truth that was beginning to emerge, I felt that perhaps, just perhaps, I had found something worth fighting for, a chance to be true, not just with Sarah, but also with myself. That night was wrapped in a glamour I had only seen in movies. The soft music floated through the air, and the bright lights reflected off the crystal glasses, creating a spectacle of colors that was almost hypnotizing. The gala was in full swing, and I, Ethan Caldwell, felt an immense weight on my shoulders. The pressure from my family, the expectations, all of it suffocated me. Attentive gazes and whispers in the corners seemed to scream that I needed to conform, that marrying a socialite was my destiny. As I walked through the room, I felt like a fish out of water. The elite of Nova Bellezza were there, adorned with sparkling jewels and designer outfits, but I couldn't bring myself to care about this superficial world. What I truly desired was freedom. As I stepped away from a group engaged in empty conversations about brands and events, my gaze fixed on an art gallery set up on one of the walls of the hall. It was there that I saw her for the first time. Sarah Thompson was in the midst of a small group, gesturing animatedly as she spoke about her works. Her tousled brown hair contrasted with the simple dress she wore, but there was something about her that immediately captured my attention. She had an authenticity that was rare among the women I knew. I looked at her artworks, vibrant paintings full of emotion and life, and realized that, unlike what I was used to, her art didn't seek to please anyone, but rather to express a raw and visceral truth. I decided to approach her. With a hesitant smile, I introduced myself. "Hi, I'm Ethan. Your work is incredible. I've never seen anything like it before." She turned to me, surprised, and her eyes sparkled in a way that intrigued me. "Thank you. I'm Sarah. I'm glad you liked it. This collection means a lot to me. It's a way to show what I feel." The conversation flowed naturally. With each word, I felt the pressure of the gala, of the judging gazes, decrease. With Sarah, I didn't need to wear the mask society expected of me. The connection we began to build was stronger than any social convention. "You're different from the women who usually attend these events," I commented, trying to understand what made her so special. She laughed softly, a sound that was music to my ears. "They say I'm an artist, but really, I'm just a woman trying to find my way. I can't feel comfortable amid all this glamour. I feel that art is the only place where I can be myself." That statement resonated with me. I was also tired of playing a role. What did I really want? And so, the idea began to germinate in my mind. "Sarah, I have a somewhat unusual proposal. What if you became my fake fiancé? It would help me escape the pressure from my family, and you could gain some recognition in the art world. What do you think?" She looked at me, a mix of surprise and hesitation. "Are you serious? A fake engagement? That's risky." "I know, but think of it as an opportunity. I'm not like the people you see here. And honestly, I don't want to marry a socialite who only cares about appearances. You would be a great partner in this plan, and who knows, maybe we can help each other find what we really want." Sarah pondered for a moment, and I could see the internal battle in her eyes. "I don't know. This doesn't feel right, but at the same time, I would like to be recognized. Art is all I have, and maybe this is the opportunity I've been waiting for." "Then let's do it. We can start building a story that works for both of us, and I promise it won't just be a farce. We can support each other in this crazy world," I said, trying to convince her. Finally, she nodded, and a shy smile formed on her lips. "All right, Ethan, let's do this." The next event was a real turning point. Our first public appearance as a fake couple. The atmosphere was electrifying, and I was nervous, but at the same time relieved to have Sarah by my side. As I entered the hall, holding her hand, I noticed that the chemistry between us was palpable. People were watching us, and I felt the weight of their stares, but there was something different this time. With Sarah, I didn't feel like I had to hide. "What do you think?" I asked, squeezing her hand lightly. "Are we doing this?" "Yes, we are," she replied, a sparkle in her eyes. "I just hope I don't do anything too bizarre. I'm not good at events like this." "Relax. Just be yourself. They don't know the real Sarah, and honestly, I don't care what they think," I said, trying to reassure her. As we walked through the hall, we exchanged laughter and knowing glances. The atmosphere was filled with joy, and the idea of being together, even if just fictitiously, excited me. Sarah interacted with other artists and socialites, showing a side of her I had never seen before. She was charming, and the way she spoke about her works and her love for art was infectious. However, not everything was perfect. One presence in the room caught my attention: Vanessa. Known for her envious nature, she watched the scene from afar with a look that oozed disdain. Her expression sent a chill down my spine. It wasn't the first time she had tried to undermine me, and I knew it wouldn't be the last. "Who is that?" Sarah asked, noticing my gaze. "Oh, just a socialite who has nothing better to do than meddle in other people's lives. You don't need to worry about her," I replied, trying to downplay the situation. But Vanessa was not someone I could easily ignore. With a sly smile, she approached us. "Ethan, darling, I like your choice of bride, but do you really think an unknown artist can fit into this world? The guests are wondering what she's doing here." Sarah shot me an apprehensive look. I could feel the tension in the air, but I didn't want to let Vanessa win. "She is more than you can imagine, Vanessa. Don't underestimate someone's talent just because they weren't born with a silver spoon." "Talent? Oh, that's nice. But you know how things work here, right? Appearances are everything," she said with a smile that betrayed her intention to destabilize our charade. "And what if appearances aren't everything?" Sarah interrupted, her voice firm. "I am who I am, and I don't need validation from anyone, especially not from you." I was surprised by Sarah's courage. She was standing up for herself, and it made me proud. The conversation turned into a clash between two worldviews: Vanessa with her arrogance and Sarah with her authenticity. Deep down, I realized that that night could be a turning point. When we finally managed to walk away from Vanessa, I looked at Sarah, admiring her. "You were amazing." "Thank you. I don't know where that courage came from, but I can't let people like her bring me down," she said, still a bit breathless. "And you shouldn't. We'll face this together." "No matter what happens, I promise I'll be by your side," I assured her. That night, as the music echoed and the guests danced, I realized we were building something bigger than just a simple charade. Our friendship was evolving into something I had never imagined. The glamour of Nova Bellezza no longer felt so oppressive. On the contrary, it seemed we were ready to face the world together. And so, in that moment, under the bright lights and with music in the background, I knew our journey was just beginning. The atmosphere was charged with tension and anticipation, as if the very air in Nova Bellezza was in a constant state of frenzy. Sarah and I, after months of a charade that had transformed into something deeper, were preparing for an event that promised to be a turning point. Since that first meeting at the art gallery, where I saw her shine with an authenticity I had never found among the socialites in my life, something within me began to change. The idea that we could merely be a facade started to seem absurd in light of the genuine connection we were building. That afternoon, as we walked through one of the city's central parks, Sarah suddenly stopped. The sun filtered through the leaves, and her golden hair glowed with a soft halo. Her eyes, usually so full of life, were now clouded with a concern I couldn't ignore. "Ethan, have you ever stopped to think that this charade might end up hurting us?" she asked, her voice soft and hesitant. I shook my head, trying to find the right words. It wasn't the first time we had discussed the nature of our relationship. The truth was, the more time we spent together, the more I questioned whether we could remain just fake fiancés. "Sarah, I started, but interrupted myself when I saw the anguish in her gaze. "I know it's not easy, and honestly, I don't know how this will end, but I can't deny that what I feel for you is real." She looked down, biting her lower lip as if she were struggling with her own feelings. I leaned closer to her, trying to capture her gaze. "What are you thinking?" I asked, wishing she would share her doubts. "I don't know, Ethan. Sometimes I feel like I'm living a dream, but I'm also afraid of waking up and discovering that it's all a lie." She took a deep breath as if she was about to open up. "I don't want to be just the artist you saved from obscurity. I want to be recognized for my work, for my art." Her words resonated in my heart. I felt the same weight, the same pressure to be more than just a millionaire waiting for an imposed destiny. That's what I admired in Sarah. She had an authentic dream, a passion that moved her, and at the same time, I wanted to help her achieve that dream. "What do you think about us working together?" I suggested, the idea springing spontaneously to my mind. "I can help you get an exhibition. You deserve to be seen." Sarah's eyes lit up, and a shy smile formed on her face. "You would do that for me?" she asked, incredulity evident in her voice. "But what if this is all just a facade? What if, in the end, I can't stand out on my own?" "It's not a facade, Sarah." Affirming that made me feel more confident. "What we have is real, and you have talent. I will do whatever it takes for you to have the chance to show it to the world." She took a step toward me, a gesture that seemed small but carried immense meaning. "Then let's do this." Her voice was determined, and I realized that, in that moment, we decided to join our forces. So we began working together, drawing up plans for the art exhibition she so desired. It was a frantic process, but with each passing day, I saw Sarah blossom. She spent hours in her studio perfecting her works, while I dedicated myself to organizing everything I could. The support I wanted to give her transformed into something deeper, and the friendship we had began to intertwine with more complex feelings. But, like a shadow hanging over us, Vanessa, a socialite who had always been in our way, watched everything closely. Jealousy shone in her eyes as she plotted to expose our facade. I knew her too well. Her manipulative behavior was nothing new to me. And although I wanted to ignore her, the thought that she could harm Sarah made me restless. One night, while we were at a cafe, Sarah and I talked about the upcoming exhibition. The aroma of fresh coffee and the soft light of the environment created a cozy atmosphere, but I couldn't shake the worry building in my chest. "Ethan, have you thought about what will happen if Vanessa finds out everything?" Sarah asked, her expression worried. "I'm more concerned about what she might do to you, Sarah. I don't want her to use you to get back at me." She nodded, a look of understanding crossing her face. "I know, but what if all this turns against us? What happens if she manages to expose our facade before I have the chance to show my art?" Her tone made me realize we were at a critical point. The pressure was mounting, and as we approached the exhibition, the fear of Vanessa becoming a reality was palpable. "We need to be careful," I said, trying to stay calm. "Let's keep a low profile until the big day." "I agree. But Ethan, we can't live in fear of her. We can't let her define who we are or what we can achieve. I want to believe in myself, in my art, and that I can be recognized for it." The strength in her words inspired me. It was a reminder that, although we were initially caught up in a facade, what was forming between us was authentic. And as we worked together, the friendship and respect we developed became the foundation for something much deeper. But as I had predicted, Vanessa was in action. Rumors began to spread among the elite, questioning the veracity of our relationship. I felt trapped in an endless cycle of false accusations and gossip. One night, while we were at home, Sarah received a message from a mutual friend. "Ethan, you need to see this." She showed me the screen of her phone, where someone had spread a rumor about our facade, insinuating that I was just using her as a trophy to show off to society. Anger began to bubble inside me, but before I could react, Sarah spoke. "We can't let this affect us. We need to focus on the exhibition. That's what really matters." I took a deep breath, trying to control my frustration. She was right, but the feeling of helplessness was overwhelming. "You're right. Let's keep going with our plan," I said, deciding not to let Vanessa's negativity affect our goal. And so we moved forward, determined not to let Vanessa's shadow prevent us from shining. The approaching exhibition was our chance to show the world not only Sarah's art, but also the truth about ourselves. Her strength inspired me, and with each passing day, I felt closer to her, more connected to her dreams and ambitions. Deep down, I knew we would face challenges, but I was also certain that we were ready to confront anything together. After all, we were in search of something more than just a facade. We were in search of the truth. The atmosphere was charged with tension in the art studio I had transformed into a creative refuge. The white walls, once bare, were now adorned with my works, each telling a part of my story. But at that moment, what worried me most wasn't the upcoming exhibition, but the conversation I needed to have with Ethan. He had become more than just a wealthy man in a charade. He was a friend, someone I admired deeply. I took a deep breath, trying to organize my thoughts. I knew the pressure on me to succeed in my artistic career was immense. Not only because of the expectations I had created for myself, but also because of the world Ethan inhabited, a world I had inadvertently begun to know more closely. The idea of being a recognized artist was a dream I had nurtured since childhood, and now, with Ethan by my side, that dream felt closer than ever. When Ethan entered the studio, his expression was filled with insecurity and determination. He approached, stopping in front of one of my canvases. "Sarah, your art is incredible. I can't stop thinking about how talented you are." I felt a warmth rise to my cheeks. "Thank you, Ethan. It means a lot to hear that from you. But I need to talk about something." The hesitation in my voice was clear, and he watched me intently, which only heightened my anxiety. "About what?" He turned fully toward me, concern evident in his eyes. "You know you can talk to me, right? I'm not just a millionaire." "I know, and that's why I want to be honest. The truth is, while I'm excited about the exhibition, I feel an enormous pressure to prove my worth. Sometimes, it feels like I'm just trying to live up to everyone's expectations." I looked at the floor, avoiding his gaze. "And on top of that, I'm worried about what this could mean for us." "And what does that mean for us, Sarah?" he asked, his voice low and filled with emotion. "I don't want you to feel like you have to be responsible for me, or that I'm just an extension of your life. I want you to see me as the artist I am, not just as your fake fiancé," I confessed, feeling a knot form in my throat. He took a step closer to me, his hands finding mine. "I don't see you as an extension of me, Sarah. I see you as someone who inspires me. You are more than the facade we've created. I care about you." "But what about your family, their expectations?" The question slipped out before I could control it. "What do you really want, Ethan?" He hesitated, as if weighing each word. "I want to be free, Sarah. Free to love who I want, to pursue what matters to me. And if that means breaking away from my family's expectations, then I'm willing to do that." "You can't just throw everything away," I said, concern creeping into my voice. "What if it ruins you, your life?" "But what if it means I can finally be happy? What I want is to be by your side, Sarah. I don't want to live a life of lies, even if the truth is scary," he replied, sincerity in his gaze taking me by surprise. I remembered all the times I had dreamed of being a respected artist, of how I had fought to get here. At the same time, the idea of Ethan by my side filled me with hope. "So, what if we tried together? If we are truly honest with each other and with those around us?" "That would be a start," he said, a shy smile appearing on his face. "But you need to promise me that you won't let the pressure affect you. You are an incredible artist, and you don't need validation from others." "I promise," I replied, my heart racing. "But what about you? Are you sure you're not just trying to break free from expectations? Do you really see me as a partner, not just as an escape from your family problems?" Ethan looked into my eyes, and I saw the depth of his feelings reflected in them. "Sarah, I like you. It's not just the facade we've created or the pressure we're facing. I care about you as a person, and that's real. The facade may have started for superficial reasons, but what's forming here is much deeper." "I feel the same," I confessed, my emotions overflowing. "But what if this ends up hurting us? What if the expectations and pressure become unbearable?" "Sometimes we need to take risks," he said, holding my hands tightly. "We have to be willing to face the unknown together. I don't want you to feel alone in this." "That's true," I murmured. "I'm so used to fighting alone. Having you by my side is new and scary, but also fascinating." "Then let's do this. Let's face whatever comes our way together," Ethan declared, his determination renewed. The conversation flowed naturally, as if we had broken an invisible barrier that separated us. We discussed our ambitions, our fears, and the plans for the upcoming exhibition. I was determined to show the world not only my art, but also the truth that was blossoming between us, even if it meant facing his family and the elite of Nova Bellezza. As the night went on, the studio filled with a sense of hope. It was as if the walls, once cold and impersonal, now vibrated with the energy of our connection. When we finally said our goodbyes, there was a new understanding between us, a commitment to support each other, no matter the challenges we might face. "Sarah," he said, stopping at the door, "no matter what happens, I will be here for you, always." "I know, Ethan, and I will be here for you too," I replied, a smile forming on my face. The truth, as frightening as it was, seemed to be the path we both needed to follow. And in that moment, I could see a future where love and authenticity could triumph over any expectation or facade. The discovery that would change everything happened on a sunny morning, but the brightness of the sun could not dispel the heavy cloud that lingered over me. I woke up with the feeling that something was about to happen, a restlessness that wouldn't let me be. After getting ready, I decided it was time to confront some truths that my mother had hidden for years. What motivated me was the desire to understand more about my father, about our past, and the connection I now suspected existed between our families. "Mom, do you have a minute?" I asked, walking into the living room where she was organizing some old photos. The smell of fresh coffee still lingered in the air. She looked up, her expression instantly closing off. It was as if I had mentioned something I shouldn't have. The silence dragged on, and the weight of expectation made my heart race. "What is it, dear?" she said, trying to maintain a casual tone, but I could sense the tension in her voice. "I need to know more about our past, about my father and—" I hesitated, but curiosity overpowered me, and about the connection with the Caldwell family. Her expression changed. The look that had been one of curiosity now seemed heavy with fear. "Sarah, this is not the time for that." Her voice was choked, as if she was trying to stifle something that needed to be said. "Mom, please," I pleaded, my heart pounding with frustration. "I found some information and I need to understand." She sighed, as if the weight of her reluctance was finally becoming unbearable. "Fine, but you won't like what you hear." She sat down, and I realized I was about to enter dangerous territory. "I just want the truth," I said, sitting across from her, ready to listen. "Your father, he wasn't just an artist. He had a past that he preferred to leave behind. There was an old connection with the Caldwell family, something I never fully understood." She began to open up, and each of her words felt like a new puzzle piece clicking into place in my mind. "What do you mean by an old connection?" I asked, curiosity growing inside me. "He was a friend of Ethan's grandfather, but something happened that separated them." She looked down, as if she were getting lost in memories she would rather not revisit. "Your father never wanted you to know this. He always said it was a closed chapter of his life." "But why?" I couldn't understand. "If they were friends, why hide this from me?" "Because there were hurts, Sarah. Hurts that he didn't want you to carry. Their lives were complicated, and he didn't want you to feel tied to a past that didn't belong to you." She was now visibly distressed, and I felt that each of her words was an effort not to hurt me. And what if I wanted to know? What if I wanted this to be a part of who I am? The desperation in my voice was palpable. What I had discovered about Ethan and the connection between our families felt like an invisible thread linking our destinies. She took a deep breath, trying to find the right words. "You need to understand, Sarah, that not everything is as it seems in love stories. Sometimes, the past is a shadow that refuses to disappear." My hands trembled as I tried to process everything. What I had built with Ethan could be crumbling because of something I still didn't fully understand. "Mom, I need to talk to Ethan. I need to understand if he knows about this." Determination was growing inside me, and I didn't know if it was courage or just a need to face the truth. "You can't do that," she exclaimed, almost desperately. "You could end up hurting him and yourself. And if I don't, what if I live a lie?" I was starting to feel suffocated by a sense of urgency. "You need to think about the consequences, Sarah." Her concern was genuine, but I was set on my decision. I couldn't live in the shadows of uncertainty. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed, bringing a new layer of tension. It was a message from Ethan. "Can we meet? There's something important I'd like to discuss." The world around me seemed to fade away as I looked at the screen. Fate was calling me, and I couldn't ignore it. "Is everything okay?" my mom asked, noticing the change in my demeanor. "I'm meeting Ethan," I said, a knot forming in my stomach. "We need to clarify this. Please be careful." She seemed vulnerable, but I had already made my decision. The journey to the cafe where we would meet was filled with conflicting thoughts. What would I say to Ethan? How would he react to everything? And what if this meant the end of what we had built together? When I arrived, Ethan was already there, waiting for me. His gaze was serious, and I could feel the tension in the air as he stood up to greet me. "Sarah, I'm glad you came." He smiled, but there was a weight in his eyes that made me hesitate. "Ethan," I began, but the words seemed to fail to come out. He gestured for me to sit down, and the atmosphere around us felt charged with electricity. "I know something is bothering you," he started, his tone soft but firm. "Don't hesitate to tell me." I took a deep breath, feeling like I was about to cross an irreversible line. "I found out something about the connection between our families." My voice was steady, but my heart was racing. He frowned, his expression changing instantly. "What did you find out?" He seemed genuinely concerned, and I realized he had no idea what was coming. "I found out that my dad had an old friendship with your grandfather. There was a past that was hidden from me." The words spilled out of me like a torrent, and I couldn't stop. Ethan fell silent, his expression transforming into confusion and then understanding. "So, you know about the connection?" he murmured, disillusionment palpable in his voice. "I didn't know until now, and I'm worried about what this means for us." I was terrified. What was unfolding before me felt like a puzzle of emotions and secrets. "Sarah, he hesitated, as if trying to process the information. "I didn't know you had a link to us. This changes everything. And if this is a reason for us to separate?" I asked, anguish spreading through my chest. "What will we do about it?" He was deep in thought, and the tension between us felt almost unbearable. "I don't want this to separate us, but we need to find out the truth. If there's something we need to face, then so be it." His voice was firm, and there was a determination in his eyes that gave me hope, but the shadow of doubt still lingered. "Vanessa, she could use this against us," I said, remembering the envious socialite who was always lurking. "I know, but we can't let the past define us. We need to face this together." He took my hand, and the connection between us felt stronger than ever, despite the storm approaching. The truth was about to be revealed, and I knew that regardless of what happened, I didn't want to lose Ethan. He was so much more than a millionaire or a facade. He was my future, and I was willing to fight for it. But the shadow of Vanessa and her malicious plans was growing, and I knew we would have to face this battle not just for ourselves, but for everything we had built together. The soft music and whispers of the elite of Nova Bellezza filled the air as I walked through the gallery, all eyes turning to me. I was Ethan Caldwell, one of the city's most prominent heirs, but at that moment, I felt more like a prisoner in a crystal castle. The pressure from my family was a weight I carried at every event, with every curious glance. That night, however, something different pulsed in my heart. It was the presence of Sarah, the artist who brought a breath of fresh air to my suffocating universe. "Look, Ethan, you can't let them trap you like this," my friend Clara said, pulling me closer to the drinks table. "You need to break free, and maybe this whole fake engagement with Sarah is your chance." I took a deep breath, my thoughts turning to the idea I had proposed to Sarah. In truth, it wasn't just a convenient escape. It was an opportunity for both of us. I wanted to escape the chains of family legacy, and she wanted recognition. But would the ruse end up consuming us? That's when I received a message from Sarah, asking to meet. My heart raced. "Clara, I need to go," I said, pulling away quickly. Her gaze followed me, but I didn't have time for explanations. When I arrived at the small cafe we had chosen, I saw Sarah sitting at a corner table, her expression a mix of anxiety and determination. She looked so beautiful in that simple dress, yet it showcased her unique essence as an artist. I sat down across from her, trying to read the thoughts dancing in her mind. "Hi, Ethan," she said, forcing a smile. "Thanks for coming." "Of course, Sarah, I was worried. How are you handling all of this?" I asked, knowing that the pressure from high society wasn't easy for someone like her. "It's complicated," she sighed, looking out the window. "Art is my life, and at the same time, I'm losing myself in this world that doesn't recognize my worth. What we're doing, it isn't real, is it? Not everything has to be based on absolute truths," I said, feeling a pang of sadness. "Sometimes we need the illusion to find a way back to reality." She looked at me, her eyes shining with a mix of hope and skepticism. "Do you really believe that?" "I want to believe," I replied, my voice heavy with sincerity. "But we need to face the truth, Sarah, and that brings me to something I realized. Vanessa is plotting something against us." Her face paled. "Vanessa? That jealous socialite? What is she doing?" She's obsessed with me and won't stop until she uncovers the ruse, and I don't want you to suffer because of it." The words spilled out quickly, almost like a warning. She's watching our every move. Sarah bit her lip, deep in thought. "I can't let her ruin my chance. I'm so close to getting a real exhibition, Ethan. I can't be seen as the fake fiancé of a millionaire. What if we face this together? What do you think about confronting her? We need to end this story once and for all." The idea floated between us like a breath of courage. "Confront? You know that could make things worse, right?" She looked at me, challenging, but I could see a spark of determination in her gaze. "I'm not afraid of Vanessa, and I don't want you to be either," I said, feeling adrenaline coursing through me. "She can't take us down. Together, we're stronger." After a brief silence, Sarah nodded. "All right, let's do this, but we need a plan." In the following days, we met frequently, discussing how to deal with Vanessa and her intrigues. As we worked together, I noticed how the dynamic between us changed. It was no longer just a convenient agreement. There was something more at stake, a bond forming with every shared laugh, every idea discussed. It was one of those nights, while reviewing Sarah's works for her exhibition, that the atmosphere shifted. The soft light of the lamp illuminated her face, and I couldn't help but admire her passion for art. "You really are amazing, you know?" I said, admiring one of her paintings. "Thank you, Ethan. That means a lot coming from you," she replied, her eyes meeting mine. There was a spark there that left me speechless. "But what about us? What will we do when all of this is over?" The question hung in the air, and I felt pressured to respond. "I don't know, but I want you to know that I'm here for you. No matter what happens, I'll be by your side." She smiled, but concern still lingered in her gaze. "And if the truth separates us?" "It won't. We'll face the truth, together." The words came out with conviction, but I knew the weight of the story we didn't yet know awaited us. And then, as if the universe were conspiring against us, the twist came unexpectedly. While Sarah was organizing her papers, she found an old letter. "Ethan, you need to see this," she called, her voice trembling. The letter revealed a connection between our parents, a bond I had never known. My grandfather and Sarah's father had a past that intertwined in ways I couldn't comprehend. "This can't be true," I murmured, my heart racing. "Why didn't you tell me this before?" She looked at me, anguish written all over her face. "I didn't know. My mom always talked about it vaguely. But now, this changes everything, doesn't it?" "Maybe." The answer came out as a whisper. "But what if Vanessa finds out? She'll use this against us." "We need to prepare," Sarah said, the determination in her eyes burning like a flame. "We can't let this tear us apart. The truth may be painful, but we need to face it." I nodded, feeling a mix of fear and hope. That revelation could be the ruin of everything, but it could also set us free. And as we prepared for what was to come, I realized that, no matter what happened, I didn't want to let Sarah go. She had become more than just a fake fiancée. She was the only one who truly saw me, who looked beyond appearances. And so we decided that instead of fearing what lay ahead, we would face it together, side by side, to confront the truth awaiting us. It was time to lay our cards on the table and let fate decide our future. The night of the big art exhibition arrived, and I could barely contain my anxiety. The venue was impeccably decorated, with soft lights reflecting on the works I had spent months creating. Every brushstroke, every color choice, everything seemed to culminate in that moment. However, as I looked around the room filled with critics, socialites, and artists, my heart raced not only with anticipation, but also because of Ethan's presence beside me. He looked so elegant in his dark suit, his eyes shining with a mix of pride and concern. "You look amazing, Sarah," he whispered, holding my hand gently. "Thank you, Ethan. But what if they don't like it? What if Vanessa tries to ruin everything?" I couldn't help but worry. Her presence was like a shadow looming over us. "She's not going to ruin anything. This is your moment, and I'm here to support you," he replied, conveying a confidence I wished I could believe. His support was all I needed, but the uncertainty still consumed me. As the night progressed, people began to disperse throughout the gallery, admiring the pieces I had displayed. I felt a wave of relief when I heard sincere compliments. "This is an artist who knows what she's doing," I heard a woman say, and my heart soared. It was everything I had dreamed of. But as the night unfolded, the atmosphere began to shift. I spotted Vanessa in a corner, watching us with a smile that promised nothing good. She was surrounded by a group of admirers, but her attention was fixed on Ethan and me. My stomach churned. When the gala reached its peak, Vanessa decided to do what she always did, attack. "Ethan, I didn't know you had such peculiar taste in brides," she began, her cutting voice echoing through the room. "An artist without pedigree, isn't that bold?" The murmurs that followed felt like a blow to my chest. I looked at Ethan, who was visibly tense. He stepped forward, his gaze determined. "Vanessa, this is unacceptable. Sarah is a talented artist, and you know that. You can't try to belittle her out of jealousy for what she has achieved." "Oh, but who would believe you, Ethan? A millionaire falling for an anonymous artist? It's almost a joke." Vanessa laughed, and the echo of her laughter felt like a knife. "She's not a joke, and I'm not playing games. This is love, and you can't tear it from us," I said, summoning my courage. The atmosphere was tense, everyone was watching, and adrenaline coursed through my veins. "Love? This is just a farce you created to escape your responsibilities. And I'm sure everyone here agrees," Vanessa continued, her voice now louder, drawing everyone's attention. I felt the sting of her words, but also a wave of determination. This wasn't just a fight for my love for Ethan. It was a fight for my art, for the recognition I had long sought. "I am an artist, and my art speaks for me. I don't need a famous surname to validate my work," I declared, my voice steady. "But you can't deny the truth. You're stepping into a world that isn't yours, and that will never change," she retorted, with an arrogance that fueled my anger. Ethan turned to me, his eyes filled with support. "Don't listen to her, Sarah. You are more than your background, more than any title someone could give you. You are talented, and I'm here to prove that to everyone." The tension was unbearable, and I knew I had to act. "Ethan, we need to defend ourselves. We can't let her destroy us," I said, looking around. People were whispering, but I felt we could turn the tide. "Let's tell our story," he suggested, with a glimmer of determination in his eyes. "Let's show them who we really are." "You're right. Let's do this together," I agreed. Hand in hand, we turned to the crowd that was watching us. "All of you are here to appreciate art, but also to understand the truth behind it," I began, feeling the adrenaline rise. "I am Sarah Thompson, an artist struggling to find my place in the world. And yes, I am engaged to Ethan, but that doesn't diminish my worth or my art." The room was in absolute silence, all eyes fixed on us. Yes, we have a complicated past, a story that isn't perfect, but who has a perfect story? What matters is what we feel for each other and what we are building together. Ethan continued, his voice resonating with sincerity. "I am not just a fake bride. I am an artist. And Ethan is not just a millionaire. He is a man who freed himself from his family's expectations to support me. And that is true love," I declared, feeling a wave of courage. Vanessa was in shock, and the murmurs in the room began to change. People started to look at each other, realizing that perhaps we didn't know everything. This is a night to celebrate talent and authenticity. I invite you all to look at my works and allow yourselves to feel the passion I put into them. What art truly represents is what each of us is capable of, regardless of our past. I finished, breathless but determined. Applause erupted. The transformation in the atmosphere was palpable. The whispered voices turned into compliments, and I realized that, despite all the difficulties, I had managed to stand up not only for myself, but for Ethan and what we had built together. I looked at him, and the smile on his face said it all. He was proud of me. Love and truth had triumphed over lies and envy, at least for that night. The atmosphere was electric at the grand art exhibition I had been eagerly awaiting. The gallery in Nova Bellezza was filled with critics, art lovers, and most importantly, people who had never believed in me. I looked around, feeling the weight of expectations on my shoulders. But at the same time, there was something different. Ethan's presence by my side gave me a confidence I had never known I possessed. "You look incredible, Sarah. Your works are stunning," he said, his eyes shining with genuine pride. The warmth of his words wrapped around me like a blanket, pushing away the insecurities that tried to creep into my mind. "Thank you, Ethan. Seriously, I wouldn't be here without you. You helped me believe I could do this," I replied, smiling at him. It was true. Since we began this journey of fake engagement, he had not only become an ally, but also someone who encouraged me to pursue my dreams. The exhibition had barely begun, and there was already a buzz around me. People were gathering in front of my paintings, discussing and admiring every detail. But even amid this celebration, a shadow loomed over us. Vanessa was there, and I could feel her piercing gaze, like a snake lurking. "Look at her," Ethan said, his voice low and tense. "She won't stop until she ruins everything." "I know," I murmured, looking at Vanessa, who was surrounded by a group of socialites, all with fake smiles and envious looks. "But today is about me, not her." Ethan nodded, but I could see the concern in his eyes. We knew Vanessa wouldn't accept losing. With her manipulative nature, she could do anything to try to destroy what I had achieved. As the night progressed, each compliment I received filled me with joy. The words of admirers were like music to my ears, but in one moment, everything changed. Vanessa, with a malicious smile, decided it was time to make her move. "We need to talk, Sarah," she said, approaching me, her tone sweet as poison. "Did you know the public loves a good story? A story of scandals, perhaps?" "Get away from me, Vanessa. I don't have time for your intrigues," I replied, trying to maintain my composure. "Oh, but you have all the time in the world now, don't you? After all, you're about to become the artist of the season. But what about the truth regarding your connection with the Caldwell? What will you do when that comes to light?" She laughed, a cold and disdainful sound. A chill ran down my spine. The connection I had uncovered in the past haunted me, but I couldn't let her intimidate me. "Ethan and I have something real. You can't destroy that." "Real? Do you really believe that love can conquer all lies?" "The truth always comes out, my dear," she said, winking an eye before stepping away, leaving a trail of insecurity and doubt behind her. I took a deep breath, trying to compose myself. Ethan quickly approached, his expression intense. "What did she say?" "Just another one of her attempts to destabilize me. She mentioned the connection between our families?" I said, hesitating. "What does she know?" he asked, tension taking over his body. "I don't know. Just that she's determined to separate us in any way she can," I admitted, fear creeping into my heart. "We can't let her affect us. You're an incredible artist, and tonight is about you, not her," he said, holding my hand tightly. His touch was comforting, and I knew he was there to support me. The night went on, and the exhibition was becoming a success. The compliments were constant, and the recognition I had longed for was finally within my reach. When the last painting was admired and the crowd began to disperse, a growing buzz started to form. Vanessa, with a triumphant smile, had arrived at the center of the gallery. "It seems we have a revelation to make, don't we, Ethan?" she said, her voice echoing through the room, drawing everyone's attention. I felt my heart race. "What are you doing?" I murmured to Ethan, my panic rising. "Let her speak. This doesn't define us," he replied, his voice firm, but I could see the tension on his face. "Sarah, do you really think you can hide from the truth? The connection between you and the Caldwell is deeper than you imagine. It's time to reveal what truly binds you two," Vanessa continued, her malicious gaze directed at the audience. The murmurs in the gallery grew louder, and people began to whisper. I looked at Ethan, who was now standing, preparing to face the storm. He turned to me, his eyes filled with determination. "Don't worry, Sarah. I'll handle this," he said, and his voice was like an anchor amid the chaos. Vanessa began to tell the story she had uncovered about our family ties. I could feel the heat of shame rising to my face, but at the same time, a wave of courage washed over me. I wouldn't let her ruin this moment. I had fought too hard to get here. "Wait a minute," I shouted, causing all eyes to turn to me. "Yes, there is a connection between our families, but that doesn't define what Ethan and I have. Love is stronger than any blood tie." The gallery fell silent. Ethan was by my side, and I could feel his strength supporting me. We both know that what we feel is real, and nothing, not even you, Vanessa, can change that. The words came out with such sincerity that even I was surprised. The audience began to murmur again, but now it was different. There was respect in their voices, a recognition of the struggle I had faced. "Sarah is right," Ethan declared, his voice resonating with firmness. "We chose this. We chose to love each other, regardless of what the past has brought us. Vanessa, your games are just desperate attempts for attention. You can't separate us." "Is that what you think?" Vanessa turned to him, her face twisted in anger. Do you really think you can just ignore the truth? And what is the truth to you? The truth is that people change, stories change, and what truly matters is what we do with the present, I said, finding my courage. I won't let you make me feel less than I am. I am an artist, and this is my moment. With that, the tension in the gallery began to dissipate. People started to applaud, first slowly, then in a crescendo that seemed to echo throughout the space. It was as if the truth we were defending was finally resonating in the souls of everyone present. Let's move forward, Sarah. Let's do this together, Ethan said, gripping my hand fiercely. Yes, let's, I replied, feeling a wave of determination. The night had transformed into something more than I had dreamed. It was not just an art exhibition, it was the affirmation of our truth, our struggle, and our love. When we finally left the gallery, the world outside seemed brighter. The weight of expectations hadn't completely disappeared, but now I knew I had someone by my side willing to face any storm. Vanessa could try whatever she wanted, but we were more than her intrigues. We were love, art, and the courage to be who we truly were. The rain was falling incessantly, creating a soft symphony against the windows of the cafe where Ethan and I met. The smell of freshly brewed coffee filled the air, mixing with the aroma of hot chocolate wafting from the tables around us. I sat in front of him, observing his features illuminated by the yellowish light of the lamp. He seemed thoughtful, as if weighing each word before speaking. Are you okay? I asked, breaking the tense silence that hung between us. Ethan looked up and smiled, but there was a shadow of concern in his eyes. I am just thinking about what comes next. He hesitated, and I knew the weight of his family and the expectations surrounding it still tormented him. We've overcome so much, Sarah. But what if Vanessa doesn't give up? What if she really manages to ruin your career? I took a deep breath, feeling the pressure in my chest. And what if I give up? What would that mean for me? I can't let her win, Ethan. That would be the same as giving up on my dream. He nodded, his gaze firm. I don't want you to give up. You are incredibly talented, and everyone is starting to see that. But at the same time, I can't let you face this alone. I am here to support you. I know, I said with a faint smile, but we need to be strategic. Vanessa won't stop. She's cunning and manipulative. If she feels like she's losing, she'll become even more dangerous. Ethan leaned forward, his eyes shining with determination. Then let's confront her, together. I'll use my influence to expose what she's doing. I can't let you suffer because of her revenge. That could end up putting you at risk, I countered, concerned. Your family won't support this. They will never accept you putting yourself in conflict with someone so well connected. I'm tired of living by their rules, he replied, his tone firm. The only thing that matters now is you and your career. If they can't see your worth, then to hell with what they think. I choose you. A warmth rose within me at his words. Ethan, that means a lot to me, but what if things get even worse? Then we'll face it together, he asserted, the confidence in his voice giving me strength. I won't let anything tear us apart, I promise. The conversation seemed to renew our hopes, but at the same time, a shadow of fear settled in my heart. What if he was right about Vanessa? What if she really tried to ruin everything? In the days that followed, the atmosphere in the cafe became our refuge. The place, now ours, was filled with conversations about art, dreams, and of course the plan to expose Vanessa. But amid all this, her presence felt like a constant shadow, always watching us. One morning, while reflecting on a new piece I was creating, I received a message from Ethan. He wanted to meet again. When I arrived at the cafe, I found him with a serious expression. Sarah, he began, I heard news about Vanessa. She's spreading rumors that you plagiarized some of her works, and this could harm your exhibition. My heart raced. What? That's absurd. I never plagiarized anyone. I know, he said, holding my hand. But we need to act fast. If we don't do anything, these rumors could spread like wildfire and ruin everything you've built. So what do you suggest? I asked, trying to stay calm. Should we confront her directly? Ethan shook his head. No, that would only give her what she wants. We need evidence. Let's investigate and find out where she's getting this information. If we can expose her, we can end this once and for all. Do you think people will believe us? I questioned, doubt gnawing at my confidence. She's so influential. What can we do? We need to find allies, Ethan said, his expression determined. The art community is small, and many know who Vanessa is and how she manipulates things. If we can gather people who can speak in our favor, maybe we can turn the tide. You're right, I agreed, feeling a spark of hope ignite within me. Let's do this. I can't let her win. I will fight for what I've built. In the following days, Ethan and I became a united force. He reached out to friends in high society who knew the truth about Vanessa, while I spoke with other artists who could attest to my authenticity. Each conversation, each contact, seemed to bring us closer to our goal. However, the atmosphere of tension never left our minds. Every time we received a message or heard rumors about what Vanessa was doing, fear crept into our hearts. Until one rainy night, when the city seemed shrouded in a cloak of mystery, we decided to meet again at the cafe. The sound of the rain tapping on the windows was comforting, but the worry on our faces was palpable. Sarah, Ethan began, his voice low. I heard that Vanessa is planning something big. She might be setting a trap for you at the next exhibition. What do you mean? I asked, feeling a chill run down my spine. She's going to try to discredit you in front of everyone. If we're not careful, it could be devastating. A sense of fear took over me. What if she succeeds? What if everything I've built crumbles because of her? He held my hand, his grip firm and reassuring. We're not going to let that happen. We're in this together, and we'll do whatever it takes to protect your career and your name. We'll expose her before she has the chance to act. Do you really think we can win? I asked, looking into his eyes. I know we can, he said, the confidence in his voice strengthening me. You deserve to be recognized for your talent, and I won't let anyone take that away from you. The night stretched on as we talked about strategies, plans, and what was to come. I felt that even in the midst of the storm, there was a light on the horizon, and even with Vanessa lurking, I knew I had someone by my side who was willing to fight for me. The love we were building was stronger than any facade, and together, we were unstoppable. The atmosphere of the gala was charged with expectations and whispers. I could feel the electricity in the air as I walked alongside Sarah, each of our steps echoing in the grand room illuminated by crystal chandeliers. The venue was filled with familiar faces from the high society of Nova Bellezza, but at that moment, I could only see Sarah. She looked stunning in her red dress, which accentuated her curves and made her shine like a star. Looking at her filled me with a pride I had never felt before. You look amazing, I murmured as I adjusted a strand of hair that had fallen over her face. Sarah smiled, her eyes sparkling with a mix of nervousness and excitement. Thank you, Ethan. It all still feels like a dream to me, she replied, intertwining her fingers with mine. Her touch was a constant reminder that we were in this journey together, and that despite all the difficulties, we had overcome so many barriers. The room was filled with artists, art critics, and socialites, all eager to see the works Sarah had displayed. It was a very special night, not only for her, but for both of us. As the soft music danced through the air, I pulled her closer to me, feeling the tension and anticipation in her body. Are you ready to shine? I asked, trying to encourage her. Ready and terrified at the same time, she admitted, laughing nervously. What if no one likes it? What if Vanessa is right and I'm not good enough? Look, what you need to remember is that you are more than good enough. You are extraordinary, and your art speaks for itself, I replied, looking into her eyes with sincerity. What mattered most that night was that she felt supported and loved. Finally, the moment arrived. Sarah was called to the stage to give a speech. My heart raced as I watched her step up to the microphone. She took a deep breath, looking out at the crowd, her eyes locking onto mine for a brief moment. Good evening, everyone. I am so emotional to be here tonight. This exhibition represents not only my work as an artist, but also a part of who I am, she began, her voice steady yet trembling. Art is a form of expression that connects us, and I hope each of you finds something that resonates in your hearts in my works. The crowd was attentive, and with each word she spoke, I saw the confidence grow in her gaze. When she finished, the room erupted in applause. A wave of emotion enveloped her, and I clapped fervently, my chest swelling with pride. You were amazing, I exclaimed when she came off the stage, her eyes shining. Thank you, I did it, I really did it. She jumped with joy, and as the crowd began to disperse, a familiar figure approached us. Vanessa, with her air of superiority, couldn't resist meddling. "Oh, look at that, the fake engaged couple. How lovely to see you both showing off like this," she said, her sarcastic tones slicing through the air. "Vanessa, this is not the time for this," I interrupted, trying to keep calm. "Why not? Do you really think all this glamour will last? People may have forgotten, but I haven't. And I guarantee you won't escape this so easily," she whispered, a malicious smile on her lips. "I'm no longer afraid of you," I replied, feeling anger rise. "What matters is that Sarah and I are together, and your attempt to tear us apart has failed." As Vanessa walked away, her expression still carrying frustration, I turned to Sarah, who looked worried. "She's not going to give up, is she?" she asked, the vulnerability in her voice making me feel a pang of sadness. "No, but we can't let that affect us. What you did here today is greater than any rumor she could spread. You deserve to be celebrated," I said, holding her hand firmly. That night, as conversations filled the air and the guests enjoyed themselves, Sarah and I took refuge in a quieter corner of the room. Looking at her works displayed on the walls, I realized how far she had come and how much I wanted to be by her side on this journey. "Ethan, do you really think I can handle all of this?" she asked, her eyes fixed on the paintings. "What if I can't stand the pressure?" "You're not alone, Sarah. I'm here, and you're stronger than you think. Remember what we went through to get here. Together, we're unstoppable," I declared, pulling her closer to me. "You're right. I just need to remember that," she replied, offering a shy smile. "We'll face this together." As the night progressed, I noticed that recognition was coming, not just for Sarah, but for us as a couple. The elite of Nova Bellezza, who had once looked at us with disdain, were now beginning to see the depth of what was happening between us. And then, as if the universe were conspiring, Vanessa decided to make her final move. During a moment when everyone was distracted, she climbed back onto the stage, microphone in hand, and began to speak. "Ladies and gentlemen, I think it's time for some revelations. We all know that Ethan and Sarah have a peculiar connection. After all, who could forget the story of their parents? What many don't know is that Ethan's grandfather and Sarah's father were close friends, and this fake bride might be more than she appears," she shouted, with a mischievous grin. The murmurs in the room grew, and I felt the world crumble around me. The tension was palpable, but when I looked at Sarah, I saw that she was just as determined as I was. "You don't know what you're doing, Vanessa. You're just trying to ruin what we have," I shouted, stepping onto the stage beside her, grabbing the microphone. "The truth is, this doesn't change how we feel about each other. True love is not affected by family ties or stories from the past. What matters is who we are now." The room fell silent, and then, to my surprise, Sarah joined me, taking the microphone. "And I'm grateful for my story, but now I'm writing my own. Ethan and I are more than just a pair of fake fiancés. We're partners, friends, and above all, lovers. And that, Vanessa, is something you will never be able to destroy," she declared, her voice filled with emotion. The audience began to applaud, and the energy in the room shifted. Everyone was moved by the authenticity of our words. Vanessa, realizing that her strategy had failed, stepped back, her face pale with frustration. "You'll regret this," she whispered as she walked away, defeated. And so, as the night came to an end, Sarah's exhibition became an absolute success. With each round of applause she received, I felt we were breaking free from the chains that had bound us. When the crowd finally dispersed and the party emptied out, I pulled Sarah closer to me and hugged her tightly. "You were amazing. I couldn't be prouder of you," I whispered in her ear. "And you too, Ethan. We face this together," she replied, her smile lighting up my world. With Vanessa unmasked and her plan foiled, I looked to the future alongside Sarah, ready to write a new chapter in our lives, where love and truth triumphed over deceit and revenge. "Let's do this together," I said as we left the gala, ready to face any challenge that lay ahead. Amazing stories await. In every video, a new adventure awaits you. Don't miss out. Subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell to be the first to know.